In the mid-2000s, Giancarlo Esposito was forced to declare bankruptcy since his acting career was failing. The father of four then considered hiring a hitman to murder him to provide the insurance money for his family. But shortly afterwards, he landed the role of Gus Fring on Breaking Bad, which completely turned his life around. In 2010, two women tried to smuggle their dead relative's body onto a flight by putting him in a wheelchair and giving him sunglasses. They were apparently trying to save the $3,000 it would have cost them to send his body back home. Italian man Marco Mariolini earned the nickname Anorexic Hunter due to his disturbing fixation towards emaciated women. But he wasn't simply drawn to women who were already thin. He wanted to actively shape them into emaciation by pushing their bodies to extreme levels of malnutrition. He made his wife starve herself, making her lose more than 70 pounds until he eventually broke up with her once he got her pregnant. Marco then started dating a woman named Monica, whom he would punch in the stomach if she ate anything he considered excessive. He would even take her to nice restaurants where he would eat in front of her while she was forced to starve. One day Monica had enough and attacked him with a hammer before later turning herself in, only to end up facing house arrest with her monstrous partner. Marco would end up fatally stabbing her 22 times in retribution, and only spent a few years in prison before being released in 2021. By the way, I have no idea what's going on with that facial hair. It's totally unrelated to the story. Trust me, I have so many questions myself. A 23-year-old college student from Taiwan was forced to have both of his legs amputated after suffering severe frostbite that his doctor couldn't believe was real. He claimed it was the result of being stuck outside after a bad motorcycle accident, but the truth was he'd stuck his legs in dry ice for more than 10 hours while trying to pull off a massive insurance fraud scheme. His friend and accomplice tied him to the chair, so he had no choice but to endure the excruciating ice burns. Instead of the $1.7 million payout they were hoping for, both of the young men were sent to prison for insurance fraud. This photo of Samantha Koenig was taken by serial killer Israel Keys to convince the victim's family that she was still alive, so that he could demand $30,000 in ransom from them for her safe return. But in reality, Koenig had already been dead for several weeks, and Keys had sewn her eyes open using fishing line. The family paid some of the ransom before the killer dumped Samantha's body in a lake and never contacted them again. This 2022 photo shows 40-year-old Russian mother Anna Uskova moments before she jumped into a frozen river. She was apparently following a Christian Orthodox tradition of Epiphany and believed that jumping into the frigid water would rid her of sin. However, she jumped in at a bad angle and was quickly swept away by the powerful current, trapping her under the ice. Her husband immediately jumped in to rescue her while their children screamed in horror. But his efforts were unsuccessful and her body was recovered 10 days later. This was the truck belonging to Missouri town bully Ken McElroy after he was killed in broad daylight by an angry mob in 1981. Over the course of his life, McElroy was accused of dozens of felonies, including assault, child molestation, burglary, animal cruelty, arson, and statutory grape. He always managed to escape serving time until eventually being convicted of attempted murder. But McElroy appealed and was released on bond before he immediately threatened to kill several people. An angry mob then showed up at the bar he was drinking at and shot him several times in his truck while he was attempting to leave. Despite over 40 different witnesses, nobody admitted to seeing the murder take place, and no one has been charged to this day. Cyclopia is a real congenital disorder marked by the failure of the embryo to properly divide the orbits of the eyes into two separate cavities, resulting in a single eye in the middle of the face. It's usually caused by a mutation in the Sonic the Hedgehog gene, real, and typically results in death within a few hours after birth. The tragic condition occurs in 1 out of every 200 miscarried fetuses, and the maximum recorded lifespan of a child born with cyclopia is 1 day. Following the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, people have been putting up wanted posters across New York City targeting other healthcare CEOs. The posters read, "Healthcare CEOs should not feel safe," after his 28-year-old teacher allegedly made creepy remarks to a 6th grade girl. A young student catfished the man and made him think he was talking to a 14-year-old girl. After receiving concerning messages from the teacher, the boy reported him to police and he now faces charges of sexual exploitation. In 2012, Donna Summer died from lung cancer at the age of 63, even though she wasn't a smoker. The singer believed it was caused by inhaling the toxic fumes from the Twin Towers after they fell on 9/11, since the dust filled the air around Ground Zero for several months afterwards, and Summer lived nearby. In fact, around 6,400 people have since died from 9/11 related illnesses, more than double the amount that died on the actual day of the attacks. The Dani tribe in Indonesia is known to cut off parts of their fingers after the death of a loved one. In 1928, Alfred Lowenstein, the third richest man in the world at the time, completely disappeared from his private jet in the middle of a flight. After Alfred took too long to use the bathroom, his secretary went in to check on him, but the bathroom was empty and the exit door connected to it was wide open. There have been many theories put forth, but Alfred most likely opened the wrong door by accident and plunged thousands of feet to his death. In 2016, a man who'd been continuously stalking Miranda Cosgrove apparently plotted to murder her. For 3 days, the stalker had been burying various weapons in Cosgrove's backyard, including knives and a rope. One day, he spent hours pacing around the area and eventually shot at a woman who looked like the iCarly actress. The man then performed self-immolation before turning the gun on himself right in Cosgrove's yard. Miranda has stated that she still lives in the same house but refuses to stay there alone ever since that traumatic incident. Earlier this year, inmates at a Miami prison managed to birth a child without ever even meeting each other face to face. 23-year-old Joanne DePaz and 29-year-old Daisy Link, both imprisoned for separate murder charges, started talking to each other through the air vents before falling in love and eventually wanting kids. Using a makeshift line made out of bedding, they passed Joanne's erectoplasm through the vents, while Daisy used a yeast infection applicator to inseminate herself. Against all odds, the plan worked, and the baby was born healthy. The pair are now in different prisons, while Joanne's mother is raising their baby girl. Here's a 1955 photo of actor James Dean pretending to sleep inside of an open casket at a furniture store in Indiana. After a fatal car crash just 7 months later, Dean would end up laying in a casket permanently. Martin Luther King Jr.'s mother, Alberta, was also murdered 6 years after her son was assassinated. She was shot and killed by a 23-year-old black man who thought that black civil rights activists and ministers were evil. The man yelled, "You are serving a false god," and shot Alberta King with 2 handguns while she was playing an organ during a church service in Atlanta. In 2009, the body of a man with graying hair was found washed up on a beach in Sligo, Ireland. He'd been checked into a nearby hotel under the name Peter Bergman, and his movements were captured on security cameras throughout the town, but aside from this, very little is known about the man. He was found with most of his clothes left behind on the shore, with no wallet, money, or form of ID. It's not even clear how he died, since there was no evidence of drowning or foul play, but the post-mortem showed that he had advanced stages of prostate cancer and bone tumors, and was likely in significant pain before he died. One thing that's for certain is that the man traveled extensively to erase all evidence of his existence, as he still remains unidentified to this day. In 2002, Pennsylvania mother Brenda Heist completely disappeared after dropping her 2 kids off at school. 11 years later, she was found living with a group of homeless people in Key West, Florida. Investigators found out she was upset about an upcoming divorce and wanted to completely abandon her life as she knew it. Brenda survived by living under bridges and eating scraps of food until she got tired of running and decided to turn herself in. Her family wanted nothing to do with her since they thought she'd been dead for years, and her ex-husband was even treated as a suspect for her supposed murder. In 1995, Johnny Depp saved Courtney Love's life after she overdosed outside of a nightclub in Los Angeles. He performed CPR and managed to revive her before paramedics arrived and rushed her to the hospital. Instead of flowers, people bring sticks to the 120-year-old grave of a dog named Rex. In the year 2000, a passenger on a Philippine Airlines flight hijacked the plane and robbed all the other passengers. He tried escaping using a homemade parachute, but was afraid to jump out and needed a flight attendant to push him. His parachute failed to open and he plummeted to his death while everyone else was unharmed. Known for playing Donna's mom in That 70s Show, actress Tanya Roberts died from a severe UTI that advanced to sepsis and multi-organ failure. She first noticed the pain while out hiking one day and decided to sleep it off. But the next morning, Roberts fell out of bed in severe pain and couldn't get back up. She was quickly rushed to the hospital where she ended up dying 2 weeks later. In 2022, a 71-year-old cyclist named William Hosch was struck by an ambulance while riding his bike in Oregon, causing multiple injuries, including a fractured nose. The same ambulance brought him to the hospital, but later followed up with a bill for $1,800 for the ride. Hosch has since filed a lawsuit seeking just under $1 million. After a night out in 2016, 23-year-old Royal Air Force gunner Corey McKeague suddenly vanished. Security footage showed him entering a street, but never showed him exiting. Police eventually concluded that he fell asleep in a garbage bin and was crushed to death by a garbage truck. Corey's body was never found. In 2007, a 21-year-old man named Ben Carpenter, who suffers from muscular dystrophy, was pushed by a semi-truck for 4 miles after his wheelchair got stuck in the grill. Thankfully, officers heading in the opposite direction noticed the terrifying situation and stopped the driver before things got serious. Ben miraculously escaped without a scratch on him, but was traumatized by the incident. Ira Hayes was a Native American Marine who was one of the men photographed raising the American flag over Iwo Jima in 1945. But despite national fame after the war, Hayes suffered from severe PTSD and descended deep into alcoholism. In January of 1955, he tragically ended up freezing to death while drunk in the Arizona desert. Discovered at the age of 18, Susan Peters had a very successful acting career until she was shot during a hunting trip in 1945. Her husband's rifle accidentally fired into her spine, leaving her permanently paralyzed from the waist down. A few years later, one day Peters told her doctor, "I'm getting awfully tired. I think it would possibly be better if I just died." She then starved herself for the next few months until tragically dying from pneumonia at the young age of 31. This is one of the worst cases of Munchausen syndrome by proxy ever seen by doctors. For years, Kelly Ronahan was thought to be suffering from a mysterious illness that caused her to frequently lose blood and required weekly transfusions. But once doctors started catching on that Kelly was likely draining her own blood to appear anemic, she moved on to a new health issue. She allegedly started picking at her legs, putting chemicals on them, and rubbing all sorts of substances and dirt into the wounds. Soon enough, her legs got so bad that Kelly needed a muscle transplant and skin grafts to cover up the holes. After being discharged from the hospital, she continued picking at the scabs and causing further damage, eventually turning parts of her legs black. It got to the point where she nearly died from sepsis and required both of her legs to be amputated. Kelly gleefully documented her whole medical journey on social media, posting hundreds of photos and videos of her progress over the years. But in the end, she reportedly did it all for internet sympathy. A Russian YouTuber was recently sentenced to 6 years in a maximum security prison after he allegedly caused his pregnant girlfriend to die from hypothermia during a live stream. Known as Stas Reflay, the streamer reportedly forced his girlfriend onto a freezing cold balcony wearing nothing but her underwear. Sometime later, he pulled her back inside and appeared confused, saying, "Chat, she has no pulse, she's pale, she's not breathing." He then laid her lifeless body on the couch, opened up a bottle of liquor, and continued streaming for an additional 2 hours before authorities finally arrived. The streamer's actions were apparently part of a disturbing trend known as trash streaming that's popular in Russia, where streamers perform dangerous or degrading stunts for donations. According to reports, Stas was sent $1,000 by a viewer to watch him abuse his girlfriend. The 34-year-old only ended his stream after police entered his home and pronounced his girlfriend dead. Known for his legendary role of Cousin Eddie in the National Lampoon's Vacation movies, American actor Randy Quaid has faced a bevy of legal issues over the years. In 2009, he and his wife Evie were arrested for allegedly using a fake credit card to pay a $10,000 hotel bill. The next year, the couple was arrested again after spending 5 days in a guest house on a property they once owned in Cali. Facing felony vandalism charges, they fled to Canada seeking asylum, claiming they were gonna be murdered by a group of Hollywood star whackers. The couple was later detained by Canadian immigration officials but eventually released. They now permanently reside in Burlington, Vermont, and still maintain that they were victims of a dark Hollywood conspiracy. During the 2014 filming of Muppets Most Wanted, Danny Trejo's mom suddenly passed away. The actor managed to hold it together when everyone on set gave him their condolences. But when Kermit the Frog offered his own sympathies, Trejo ran to the bathroom bawling his eyes out. An Italian Mafia hitman named Edgardo Greco killed 2 mob rivals with a crowbar before fleeing to France. He went on the run for more than 30 years until he was discovered working as a prestigious pizza chef. Greco's food became so famous thanks to his homemade recipes that he was featured in the local newspaper, resulting in his cover being blown. A 71-year-old man from Africa has lived in total isolation for 55 years to stay away from women. At the age of 16, he locked himself into a home secured by a 15-foot fence to avoid any possible interactions with females. He reportedly suffers from gynophobia, an irrational fear of women. A 26-year-old mum from the UK has died after traveling to Turkey for a Brazilian butt lift. The official cause of death was a fat embolism after some of the injected fat apparently entered her bloodstream. Many health professionals consider BBLs to be barbaric procedures because of the significant health risks associated with them that are seldom discussed. In July of 1518, a French woman ran from her house and started dancing fervently in the street. Within a week, a few dozen others had joined her, and by the next month, hundreds fell victim to this dancing plague. They danced completely uncontrollably and seemingly without reason, often for days on end, until they collapsed from exhaustion or even died from heart attacks or strokes. Up to 400 people in total died before the phenomenon suddenly stopped. It's widely believed that the dancing plague was caused by stress-induced hysteria or poisoning from a wheat fungus called ergot. After just one date with him in 2018, Arizona woman Jacqueline Adis allegedly sent a man over 159,000 texts over a 10-month span. Some of the texts were incredibly disturbing threats like, "I'd make sushi out of your kidneys and chopsticks out of your hand bones. I'd wear your fascia in the top of your skull and your hands and feet." Adis was later arrested for trespassing inside the man's home while he was out of the country, but she was later declared mentally incompetent to stand trial and the charges were dropped. This is the 2,000-year-old skull of Mary Magdalene on display at St. Maximin Basilica in France. It's considered to be one of the most precious relics in all of Christendom. In 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson drove his car into a ditch while driving home from a party. He called his parents and told them he was fine, but wasn't sure exactly where he was. Nearly 50 minutes into the call, he suddenly yelled, "Oh shit," and then went silent. He's never been seen nor heard from again. Mark Gator Rogowski was one of the biggest stars in skateboarding throughout the 80s until he suffered a severe accident at a West Germany hotel. The skater fell from his window and landed on a fence, resulting in critical injuries including a broken neck. After his career quickly fell off and his girlfriend broke up with him, Rogowski raped and murdered one of his ex's friends and was sentenced to 31 years in prison. Earlier this month, Colombian police announced the arrest of a 22-year-old hitwoman known as The Doll. She had reportedly carried out several gang-related murders, including her ex-boyfriend, and was known for her expert handling of firearms. Here's an 1870 photo of an Indian guru wearing an iron collar so he could never lay down. He did this by choice as a sign of devotion to his religion, believing that suffering allows one to grow closer to the spiritual. In 2019, Fred Pepperman swam out to rescue his 3 daughters who were caught in a riptide on a Florida beach. After saving them all, he fell unconscious and passed away on the way to the hospital. His final words to them were, "I got you." In 2013, double amputee and 4-time Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius shot his girlfriend 3 times through a locked bathroom door, claiming he mistook her for an intruder. During his murder trial, Pistorius removed his prosthetics and hobbled on his stumps, while apparently attempting to garner sympathy and a more lenient sentence. But the judge wasn't buying it and sentenced the athlete to 15 years in prison for murder. This is the skeleton of a female vampire pinned to the ground with a sickle across her throat to prevent her from returning from the dead. It was found during an archaeological dig at a 17th century cemetery in Poland. In the late 1800s, there is an urban legend about a demonic figure roaming around the Arizona deserts that killed multiple people. It turned out to be a feral camel with the decaying corpse of a male soldier strapped to its back, likely the tragic result of Jefferson Davis's attempt to create a camel division in the U.S. Army.